Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. My question is for all of the panelists. I have strong concerns about the potential reach of the Clean Water Restoration Act, and I want to know your opinions. Do you think our current practice sufficiently protects our nation's water interests, or is there a role for expanded jurisdiction if it stops short of removing navigable waters from the definition? So I'll start with Mr. Schellenberger and then just work down. I'd like to know your opinions about that.
Well, we would like anything changes are made, if they are made, we'd like them to be very clear and concise so they're easy to understand. And that's not the case that typically happens in government. So we would only support something that if it was very clear and concise, and without knowing what it is, we really can't agree to it. But I think leaving navigable in there is very good. Thank you.
I think it probably takes more work on the part of the Corps and EPA because the word navigable is in there. But I think that is good. Because then you make a determination that is more comprehensive. When you take that out, then I just think you're going to, there's nothing to really be sort of the anchor as to how you make those determinations. So I think that's very critical that it be left in.
Thank you. That was a very good question. Bureaucrats over time expand the original intent of legislation. In the Clean Water Act, they've expanded since 1972, the concept that even my dry lands are part of the waters of the United States. So that's a real problem. Why can't the Corps of Engineers, if they think there's a problem, identify the problem and work with a landowner about the problem, come to a agreement and for what might be done in a specific spot in a particular state, and then with the help perhaps of grants, fund money to solve that particular problem, in contrast to throwing a net across the whole of the United States and regulate as contemplated by the expansion of the Act.
As an elected official who's in charge of water and wastewater for the city of McAllen, I'm all for clean water. I think we pump our water for the citizens of McAllen out of the Rio Grande River, which shares a border with Mexico. So I want to make sure that the water that we're pumping out of that river is as clean as possible, and so not only reduces the costs of purifying the water for the citizens, but also just ensures their safety and that they're getting a good product. So I think it's very important that the word navigable be left in the current rule as it is, and that all should not be used to replace it. I think it'd be very important for Congress to encourage and oversee the administrative rulemaking with the EPA and the Corps of Engineers jointly, as was recommended by the Supreme Court in the Rapanos case, in order to try and get more clarity and consistency for all people. Thank you.
I think there's logic for the federal government to have oversight on navigable waters, and of course, as we all know, in 1972, when the Clean Water Act was written, that's what it said. The courts have taken some liberties, as we know, and they've been mentioned here today, in expanding that. I believe, and it's just an opinion, but I think the intent, if we go back to 72, was navigable waters. And so it is a concern to see some of the things that have occurred. But I think there is no logic removing the word navigable and giving the federal government jurisdiction over every drop of water, theoretically, that exists, including little puddles that develop after a rain. I know you all hear all kinds of horror stories about the overreach of the Corps and the EPA, and we certainly hear them and live them every day. And I agree with Mr. Pebley. I think it's very important for you all to make sure that your intent is very present in rulemaking. And I know that sometimes you all get frustrated by the overreach of the government bureaucracy and going beyond what your intent is. But this is a clear case where we really need to have a clear intent, and we need to keep the word navigable.
Time is
Thank you.
expired.
Thank you, panelists.